So in this game against Galatasaray, like with the game against Crystal Palace on the weekend, I actually thought United played pretty well throughout most of the match, and unlike in the game against Palace, United actually created some very good chances. However, once again, it's the defensive side of the game which is letting United down, and so unfortunately it seems only right to start by analysing the goals that cost United the game. But if we are looking at the positives, which I think we have to, it wasn't the defensive system that was at fault, it was just individual defensive mistakes. But before I go any further, are you looking to dramatically improve your fantasy football point score from last season? Well, let me tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Fantasy Football Fix, which is the perfect tool for anyone who wants to get the best possible start to this FPL season, as they provide an Elite 11 team reveal which allows you to track fantasy football's greatest ever managers in real time, with over 82 top 10,000 and 61 top 5,000 finishes. And just in my opinion, if you're not using this and someone else is, you're at a massive disadvantage. But not just that, Fantasy Football Fix also allows you to see the pre-deadline captain ownership data. The assistant manager tool also allows you to unlock transfer optimization, and you can also get predicted prices data to potentially get an advantage in the long run by increasing your team's overall value. And alongside this, they also have stats from Opta, they have predicted player points and much more. And I personally will definitely be using Fantasy Football Fix, and I'll be setting up my own fantasy football league, so I'll put a code somewhere either on the screen or in the description. So not only can you join my league, but you can also use Fantasy Football Fix to try to beat me as well. And so I'll leave it linked in the description for you to go to after this video. If we look at Galatasaray's first goal, which was the equaliser, we can see that United are in a pretty good 4-1-4-1 defensive shape, and as Davinson Sanchez looks to play this long pass over the United backline looking for Zaha's run, even though Dalot is probably a bit deeper than he should, I think initially he actually does well to follow the run of Zaha instead of maybe trying to step up and play the offside, allowing Zaha a free run between him and Varane. But the issue comes as soon as the ball is allowed to bounce over Varane's head, and Dalot just loses the physical battle against Zaha, getting completely dominated in the physical battle. And even though it probably wouldn't have stopped this goal, both Lindelof and Varane on his inside have also switched off as well. And you can see here Zaha could have probably even squared it to Tete, who would have had an even easier chance. But Zaha takes the opportunity, it takes a bit of a deflection off Dalot, bounces off the ground and goes over Onana in the net. And whilst this definitely was a defensive mistake from Dalot, I don't think it was a massive mistake. Dalot has been fantastic defensively as of recent. He was very good against Saka in the game against Arsenal, and also had very good games against Bayern Munich and Brighton as well. But at the top level, you can't afford mistakes like this. Dalot has to be doing better. It has cost United the equaliser, but really it's Galatasaray's second and third goals as well as a red card which cost United the game. And Galatasaray's second goal, which made it 2-2, initially stems from what I would call minor mistakes from both Amrabat and Lindelof, but culminates with a much more concerning mistake from Casemiro. And what I mean by this is as the ball gets thrown into Yilmaz, who dummies the ball, Amrabat just gets caught flat-footed, Yilmaz turns him and spins him behind. And like with Dalot in the first goal, Lindelof just isn't strong enough against Icardi at all. He has to stop him being able to turn with the ball, he doesn't, and because Amrabat got caught flat-footed higher up the pitch, Yilmaz now has space to burst into. Icardi does very well to hold up the ball and then thread the ball down United's left to find Yilmaz. Varane on the inside has to be more aware of Artukoğlu, who's making the run in behind him between him and Dalot, as Amrabat, despite his earlier mistake in the move, actually makes a very good recovery, and so Varane isn't in a position where he has to come across and close down Yilmaz, and so he has to look to shift to his right, close that gap between him and Dalot. He doesn't do this, he hasn't got any awareness of where Artukoğlu is. But despite both him and Varane making mistakes in this move, I personally would say it's Casemiro in front of them who's most at fault. We can see here as the ball initially goes into Icardi that Dalot is with Zaha on the far side and Casemiro is level with Artukoğlu in the centre. But as the ball gets moved on to Yilmaz on his right side, we see that Casemiro doesn't check over his shoulder until Artukoğlu has run off him, and Casemiro is left completely flat-footed. He's far too slow to react, and even before Yilmaz has made it into the box, Artukoğlu is already a few yards ahead of Casemiro, and by the time that Yilmaz has made it into United's box, you can see that Casemiro is way behind Artukoğlu, and so with Varane also not coming across to close off this space, Artukoğlu is completely free to make that run in between Dalot and Varane, and when he receives the ball, the first touch sets him perfectly, and the finish gives Onana absolutely no chance. And this is a concerning pattern that I've seen with Casemiro throughout the start of this season. We saw it for Danny Welbeck's goal for Brighton at Old Trafford, where both Casemiro and McTominay failed to track the late run into the box. And even for Gnabry's opening goal in the Allianz Arena in the first Champions League game, even though I did say that Eriksen was more at fault, I did think Casemiro was incredibly slow to react and get back into these sorts of positions. And this has been a recurring theme for United throughout the start of this season, and is probably their biggest defensive weakness at the moment. Tracking late runners into the box, as it seems when the opposition are able to get into these positions, United end up completely outnumbered inside their own box, with the opposition's free man usually arriving from deep, and just like Danny Welbeck, Gnabry and Artikoglu here, being the one to finish the opportunity. Now the penalty incident and subsequent Casemiro red card is solely down to Andre Onana. I have no idea what he's doing here, why he's so lax with his pass. It's not even a technical mistake, it's just sheer complacency. He completely underhits the pass and puts Casemiro in a tough position, and to be honest, Casemiro really shouldn't be making the challenge. I mean, Dries Mertens, yes, he's in front of goal, but even though technically it is a 1v1, I think looking back on it, Casemiro will feel he should have just let him take the shot, stayed on his feet and just looked to get goal side of Mertens rather than diving in, because as soon as he goes to ground, it's an obvious penalty. But for me, I'm not even really going to blame Casemiro for this one, the fault solely lays at Onana's feet. But United got let off the hook with Icardi dragging the penalty wide. Although despite being let off the hook here, another defensive calamity was just around the corner. It's around the 80th minute mark and Amrabat receives the ball, he's deeper than United's defensive line and Raphael Varane is coming back from a high position. And really here United do need to be thinking conservatively, they are playing with 10 men. But Amrabat plays an aimless long ball down the centre. You can see that as Davinson Sanchez is moving out to meet it with his head, there is a massive gap between Lindelof and Varane, with Icardi sitting behind them. Now whilst on the surface this may not look like a positional error, I think this goal is a perfect example of the complete lack of communication within United's backline, and in particular between Raphael Varane and Lindelof. One of them needs to be aware that Icardi is sitting behind them, he's being played onside by Amrabat, or not even that he's being played onside, but they need to be aware that they need to close the gap between them, and at least provide some sort of solidity in the centre of that back line. But like with the first goal, which didn't really materialise as Zaha took the chance, Varane and Lindelof seem to both switch off. Now to be fair to Lindelof, he is sitting close to his man, but Raphael Varane on the other side is a free man in that back line, and whilst he was in a high position when Amrabat received the ball, he just doesn't get back in position quick enough, which has to be considered a major mistake, particularly with 10 men. But neither Varane or Lindelof close the gap in the back line, and Davinson Sanchez just heads the ball straight through. Icardi's being played onside because Amrabat was deeper before clearing the ball, and in kind of a comical way the ball falls perfectly for Icardi, who races through on goal, and Onana has to be doing better in goal. I don't mind that he stays on his line a bit longer than he probably should. I don't think it's a major problem, I definitely think he should be coming out earlier, but the problem is he goes to ground far too early, and really Icardi shouldn't be scoring with this sort of dink, but it rather tamely goes over Onana and bounces into the net, completing an absolute comedy of errors. Now of course Onana is going to grab headlines because his mistakes were arguably the most comical of the lot, but I also think the defending of both Lindelof and Varane has to come under scrutiny, and I think this is a perfect case study as to why Erik ten Hag wanted to bring in Kim Min-jae in the summer. Because to me, both Victor Lindelof and Raphael Varane, whilst definitely being centre-backs that are able to do a decent job for United, and definitely good enough to be squad players, I don't think either are elite. Now a lot of people will say that Varane is a world-class defender, but he's just not. Anyone who watched him during his last season at Real Madrid will know that he significantly declined from his prime, which was around 2017-2018. And I think if you switched out Varane for Kim Min-jae, Galatasaray's second goal for sure, but maybe even the third goal as well, are both avoided. Factor in Lindelof not doing enough to stop Icardi turning for the second goal, and I think you can clearly see the difference between centre-backs who are decent enough at this level to the truly elite level centre-backs, and for me, neither Raphael Varane or Victor Lindelof fall into that category.